Ed eccoci in live ragazzi, ben trovati su Crystal Cross Gaming, il canale Twitch con un nuovo appuntamento con le nostre reaction e analisi, un format relativamente recente del canale che però devo dire che mi ha fatto molto piacere rendere un po' più stabile, perché l'ho provato una volta, a voi è piaciuto, a me è piaciuto molto e quindi abbiamo continuato. L'ultima volta abbiamo visto insieme la prima parte, o meglio, prima parte, i primi 2 capitoli di un documentario ufficiale di Microsoft sulla storia di Xbox che si chiama Power On. Abbiamo visto i primi 2 capitoli, in tutto sono 6 e quindi questo format probabilmente avrà 3 puntate per questo documentario, come è giusto che sia. Quindi adesso, nella puntata di oggi, vedremo il capitolo 3 e 4 e ne parliamo insieme durante e anche dopo. Un saluto a tutti ragazzi, ciao Vesh, ciao Luke, Arsun, Nico, Sandman, ben trovati ragazzi, ben trovati a tutti. Allora, io direi, aspettiamo 5 minuti insieme parlando del più e del meno, dandovi anche qualche piccolissimo aggiornamento, giusto per aspettare che arrivino un po' di persone, così da dar modo a tutti di iniziare insieme a vedere questo contenuto, in modo che poi le persone non arrivino troppo tardi, d'accordo? Stavo rivedendo le query, alla fine sono state 422, presumibilmente fake dell'altra sera. Sì, è successo recentemente, nell'ultima live, quella dell'altro ieri, la serata horror, a un certo punto è cominciata ad arrivare una pioggia di follow. Sì, di follow, perché le sub poi uno potrebbe pensare che fossero le sub quelle pagate. No, niente di tutto questo, anche perché 422 sub in un giorno probabilmente starei ancora tipo saltando dalla gioia. Nonostante tutto, no, non stati dei follow e sono un po' troppo boomer per capire fino in fondo queste cose, ma da quello che mi è parso deve essere stato una sorta di attacco bot e dovete sapere che è capitato un po' di tempo fa, prima era più comune, adesso ne sento parlare meno, che ci sono questa sorta di attacchi di follow tutti quanti insieme, perché se usano dei follower falsi poi il canale potrebbe avere dei guai al riguardo, o perlomeno è capitato a un po' di persone che seguo e barra conosco, e quando l'ho visto succedere ho pensato che fosse uno di quei casi lì. Certo che mi fa un po' strano, perché comunque il mio è un canale piccolo tutto sommato e non capisco perché prendermi di mira con una cosa del genere. Però conseguenze non ce ne sono state, non ci sono stati problemi e mi è salito di 400 la conta dei follow. Vabbè, sia come sia. Oh, a scanso di equivoci, non ne ho parlato tanto perché non vale tanto la pena, però ovviamente non me la sono fatta da solo questa cosa qua, d'accordo? Lo so che i follower si possono comprare anche le sub, si possono comprare anche le visualizzazioni in live, si possono comprare persino i messaggi in chat, anche se quello è un po' più complicato. Però no, vi garantisco e vi giuro che non ho fatto niente di tutto questo. A dire la verità non ho neanche la minima idea di come si faccia né a chi mi dovrei rivolgere per un servizio del genere, che comunque è diciamo vietato dai termini di servizio di Twitch, e quindi il mio canale rischierebbe, e quindi la trovo una cosa stupida, oltre che un trucchetto scialbo per far salire artificialmente i propri numeri, che io onestamente, anche solo eticamente, non condivido affatto. Non farò mai niente del genere, né l'ho fatto mai. Quindi su quello, ok? Anche qualcuno l'avesse pensato, neanche per idea, ragazzi. Non so chi sia stato, non so perché l'abbia fatto, è successo. Vabbè, niente, ho dovuto spegnere l'alert perché sennò stava suonando tipo tutta quanta la sera. Fossero state sub probabilmente ci facevo uno stipendio, sì, decisamente. Anche a me è successo, pensavo che era una tipa interessata a conoscermi, poi mi sono reso conto che era un bot, tristezza infinita. No, no, devo dire che questa è una cosa un po' più massiva di questo. Infatti io sono un bot, mi ha comprato, assolutamente Arson. È proprio il messaggio da bot questo qui. Per questa volta ti perdono, non vorrei che fossi il falso Arson, non prenderla come abitudine. Qua c'è accuse di falsità l'uno all'altro piuttosto di frequente, sembra il Facebook dei cinquantenni. Sono pagata a pizza e simpatia e ancora non ho visto la pizza, te l'ho già detto Arson, la pizza era arrivata ma hanno ammazzato il corriere nel mentre. Se è vero, ormai tutto si può comprare, tenne l'etica di ferro di Kristal. Ma noi esageriamo ragazzi, sono una persona normale, d'accordo? Però a queste cose ci tengo. RRF, ciao, ben trovato, ben trovato. Prova a mettere io. Va bene, ok. Sì, d'accordo. Bellissime battute, simpatia a palate e accuse di falsità l'uno con l'altro. Sì, è il Facebook dei cinquantenni, sono assolutamente d'accordo. Facebook dei cinquantenni, metto la foto di quando ne avevano 30. Giusto perché in chat non si possono postare le foto, se no scommetto che succedeva pure qui. Comunque, io direi ragazzi, ancora un paio di minuti e dopodiché cominciamo. Io intanto faccio l'unboxing della Coca-Cola fresca fresca, nuova, e ci prepariamo alla visione di questo documentario. Per fare facciamo così, un piccolo assunto della puntata precedente, perché questa è una di quelle reaction a puntate. Non saranno tante ragazzi, perché mi fa piacere fare le reaction tutte quante filate, d'accordo? Però qualche volta può capitare che i documentari siano o a puntate o particolarmente lunghi, e quindi non lo so, qualche volta può anche capitare. Forse è il caso di fare una sorta di recap della puntata precedente. Nel capitolo 1 e 2 di questo documentario abbiamo visto gli albori della nascita di Xbox all'interno di una compagnia che già un pochettino nel mondo del gaming c'era, ma nessuno avrebbe mai pensato, compresa Microsoft stessa, che a qualcuno potesse venire in mente di creare una console. È stata veramente un fulmine a ciel sereno, e io più o meno me la ricordo quell'epoca lì, anche se solo vagamente, perché comunque seguivo i videogiochi in maniera molto più casual e normaloide. Allora è relativamente recente il mio interesse un pochettino più approfondito per questo tipo di contenuti, è da quando ho aperto i canali YouTube, e anzi neanche da subito, quindi capite che all'epoca la consideravo diversamente tutta quanta la faccenda, però un po' mi ricordo di questo fatto. È stato un fulmine a ciel sereno. Bill Gates diciamo che non è stato subito d'accordissimo con questa cosa, ma poi alla fine è andata in porto. Solo che il team che ha deciso di creare Xbox aveva di fronte a sé una sfida veramente importante. Per un'azienda che prima di allora aveva creato quasi solo software, creare un hardware, sì, noi ci immaginiamo adesso Microsoft, ma all'epoca, nonostante fosse una compagnia gigantesca, era comunque diverso. Non è facile per un'azienda, per quanto grande, buttarsi su un nuovo mercato con un prodotto mai fatto prima, così da un momento all'altro. Sono delle sfide veramente importanti da superare, e abbiamo visto che, insomma, alla fine più o meno sono riusciti a presentarla, anche se in una forma abbastanza primordiale e raffazzonata, agli sviluppatori e alla stampa. Ed è da qui che partiamo a vedere il resto del documentario. D'accordo? Nico, io aspetto i cannoli. Aspetta che ti rimando anche questi per posta, arriveranno freschissimi. Qualcuno chiede ancora che cos'è il contenitore della coca, lo uccido. Non ti preoccupare, tanto succederà, stai tranquillo, perché mi rendo conto che guardandolo da fuori sembra una candela, una candela gigante, e le persone si chiederanno: ma perché stai bevendo da una candela gigante? Capisci, Luke, che non è così facile risalire immediatamente al concetto di è un thermos per la singola lattina da Coca-Cola, poi quella da mezzo litro, quella da 500. Non è la cosa più comune del mondo da vedere, e infatti io stesso ho avuto difficoltà a trovarlo quel thermos, capite? Quindi sì, tranquillo, succederà. Tutti incazzati poi di botto, facciamolo. Esatto, esattamente questo è successo. Poi me la ricordo, quella puntata era 2 settimane fa, no? O un paio di settimane fa. Era, esattamente. E Sony, quel pezzo mi ha stravolto. Un cannolo a ban? Oh cacchio. Ciao Marcotto, bentrovati. Ciao Toti, bentrovati ragazzi, a tutti quelli che si stanno connettendo adesso. Non è un thermos, beve cera liquida. Assolutamente sì. Hai letto Skull and Bones, 8 novembre, giorno dopo God of War. Ok, tanto ne parleremo nelle news, ragazzi, che devo ancora recuperare. È già comparso The Rock anoressico? Yes, è già comparso. Ciao Dainon, chi devo bannare per i cannoli? Non lo so, gente a caso, completamente in maniera immotivata. Va bene, ragazzi. Ora, direi che è il momento di partire con il documentario, quindi andiamo nella schermata principale, ma come sempre prima mi raccomando, gente, seguitemi qui su Twitch se ancora non l'avete fatto, pigiate quel bel cuoricino, possibilmente non fake, abbonatevi con Twitch Prime se ne avete la possibilità, perché aiuta davvero tantissimo il canale, credetemi, seguitemi anche sui social come Instagram e Telegram dove c'è la community, e iscrivetevi ai miei 2 canali YouTube se ancora non l'avete fatto, tutti i link sono qui sotto o tramite il bot in chat. D'accordo ragazzi? Si va! Eccoci qua, schermata iniziale, power on, story of Xbox, capitolo 3, and it didn't turn on, e non si accese. È riferito a una cosa che adesso vedremo. Sottotitoli in italiano, armati, si va.
Let me find it, let me watch it real quick.
Questa era una pubblicità. La vita è breve, gioca di più.
Love it.
Xbox.
The ad was polarizing.
Questa
and it did end up getting banned.
era
Stations would
una
not run
vecchia
the ad
pubblicità
because
di
it was,
Xbox.
so shocking for people.
There was tension for the company to be doing this gaming thing because it was really different than really the image that the company was trying to cultivate. Some of the stuff like that commercial, I don't think senior leadership saw until it
È
was
una
done.
pubblicità
We
che
don't talk
tanti
about
si
Microsoft
ricordano,
Xbox.
e quindi ha
Let's talk
fatto il
about
suo
Xbox.
ruolo.
Because
Ha
Microsoft
fatto
was
il suo
good on the
compito.
funding side, but bad on the branding side.
And if they wanted to go market it like they market Windows and they market Office, it was a deal breaker. It was not going to be successful.
The games industry did not speak the same language as Microsoft.
But if we were going to do this really hard thing and not lose billions and billions of dollars forever, we had to get it right.
People had to have the belief that they were working with the Xbox team. And if that meant there was something slightly unconventional that had to be done, the Microsoft bureaucracy wasn't going to get in the way.
There's a new contender in the video game wars.
Xbox is going to be the future.
Truly the future of video games.
Xbox.
Taking over the living room.
Limitless, connected digital entertainment.
You guys never understood.
The company is going to face fierce competition.
Sniper!
It's a ticking time
In
bomb.
Italia non mi ricordo se l'hanno mandata quella pubblicità.
Xbox getting a major overhaul.
A bold vision for the future of gaming.
Ciao Gauss! Raga, oggi è uscito un gioco dell'universo di The Witcher. Avevo visto qualcosa. Che bloccata è arrivata pure qua, me la ricordo benissimo. Dipende se per vie traverse oppure no.
The Xbox is a breakthrough game console that ships in fall 2001.
Most console companies start working on the next console as soon as they finish the current console. So 5
XT,
years,
ciao.
6 years,
Benvenuto in
7
chat per la
years.
prima
So for
volta,
Microsoft
benvenuto.
to go from announcing in 2000 to being on store shelves in the fall of 2001 is kind of insane.
Before Xbox landed on store shelves, the team had to run a gauntlet of very public deadlines. A hardware rollout in Las Vegas at the Consumer Electronics Show. A first glimpse of Xbox games at Microsoft's GameStop event in Seattle. And finally, an event that brought the entire global gaming industry together to see what was new and judge it mercilessly.
Ovvero le E3
E3 is
del
the biggest
2001.
moment of the year for games. For
Eccolo!
new entrants, it was really important to show up and make a good impression.
That E3 was critical for the Xbox, but you know, a lot of what you're showing is beta software and beta hardware.
Hardware that's not proven yet, or probably not even finished.
A lot of things at E3 can go wrong.
Adding pressure, the lead executive on Xbox development, Rick Thompson, had just left Microsoft, which meant Microsoft's mission to quickly deliver an industry-changing game console needed a new leader.
The idea of finding somebody else externally didn't make sense. We had a schedule that is crazy to begin with. The project just didn't have the time for that. Nor did we think
Max
that somebody
Payne.
externally could sort of fit into Microsoft and make this happen. And so I concluded that it was something I needed to do.
A new challenger enters.
Sort of a fateful decision, because it led to the worst 18 months of my professional career.
It's a hard project. I mean, what we were doing is something that is intensely difficult.
Robbie was the grown-up. What's Robbie's role?
We were a young group of kind of ragtag kids.
Let's go ahead and take the cars, give them 3... What the hell's that? You know, I got a demo to do up here. I don't think Robbie should be seeing this.
What we needed more than anything else was we needed an adult in the room.
I was part of Office when it was smaller, and then as it grew big.
Robbie also has a sense of propriety, and I don't think we had a sense of propriety at all.
The opportunity here way outpaces that opportunity. I think is very exciting.
Famosa.
He was the one inside of Microsoft that Bill Gates trusted with all the complexity and the cost and the risk involved in doing something like this.
Robbie's a good guy. People can trust him. Doesn't break his word. However, everyone who comes into games can't be prepared for what it's like, because it's an entertainment business. The software doesn't just have to work and have the right features, it has to entertain also. This is hard.
I had no clue what I was doing.
Molto
I didn't play
bene.
games. The business model I barely understood.
We are launching an entirely new business competing against two established competitors in one of the largest entertainment industries in the world.
I was learning something new every single day. And that meant, obviously, I failed most days, too. And I think the next 6 to 8 weeks are going to be super exciting. A little challenging.
Ciao Luigi.
I didn't
Ben
think about
trovato.
how to plan for going from 20 people to 2,000 people.
We went from 4 people to a dozen people to hundreds to, honestly, thousands involved in some way with the creation of Xbox.
It was crazy. I mean, it was no time at all before I didn't know everybody in the organization anymore.
When I think about it today, it just makes my head kind of spin sideways.
Every week, I would hear about somebody I knew in the game industry that was moving up to Redmond to work in the Xbox.
We just said, this all has to
Praticamente
be
non
done.
sapevano
We
nemmeno
need
che
bodies.
facevano, si sono aggrappati
So
a un
we hired people in
concetto.
bulk. We brought
Allora,
in teams of people.
di questo parliamo in un secondo. Sì, allora, lei non dice. Praticamente non sapevano nemmeno che facevano, si sono aggrappati a un concetto. Sì, da certi punti di vista. Ma poi ovviamente nel mondo, nel mercato, il concetto di tirare fuori una console non era per niente nuovo, c'erano già da decenni. Ed è per questo che Microsoft ci si è voluta buttare poi alla fine e gli è sembrato un investimento adeguato. Quindi era un qualcosa di spaventosamente nuovo per Microsoft, ma non era qualcosa di spaventosamente nuovo per il mercato. Quindi uno potrebbe pensare che, ah vabbè, ma che sarà mai? No, è stato difficile, oppure, oh mio Dio, è una cosa completamente nuova, vabbè, comunque ci sono anche degli altri casi studio e delle cose su cui Microsoft ha potuto imparare, quindi anche questo è importante. Solo che per la prima Xbox, quando lanci una console completamente nuova, provate a immaginare che diavolo di casino deve essere stato con questa quantità di idee che giravano, ok? Però questo è più quello che è successo prima. Adesso noi stiamo vedendo il momento in cui è partito tutto. Il design c'era, anche se solo in maniera primordiale. La Xbox che poi vedremo negli scaffali già esisteva sulla carta. È solo che avevano un anno praticamente per arrivare poi a questo punto, con queste scadenze, tipo la GDC. E vedrete.
remember thinking, there's a lot of people changing their lives for this effort. It's either got to be something that everybody believes in, and they're willing to uproot their families and get behind this initiative, or it's going to be one of the biggest cluster of all time.
It became clear that we needed our own place because we were just going to bust at the seams.
So Microsoft has this beautiful campus and all these beautiful buildings and everyone works together. We were not part of that.
We went to this campus called Millennium, which was still in Redmond, but pretty far away from Microsoft.
Part of that was we needed space, but part of it is like, we need a few miles away from main campus to get some breathing room to do something different.
We were deliberately a renegade team.
They were rebels inside of the Microsoft empire.
We were kids in our early 20s who loved video games and could not believe that Microsoft had given us jobs to go create them, and we were all kind of growing up together.
The thing about games is it's Hollywood for nerds. You have your star directors, you have your Ferrari driving rendering engineers.
Congratulations.
And
No.
after a full day of working on making games,
Come si chiamava
we would get together
quello?
and play games. And there was a little
Nel
bit of a
gioco di
weird
guida.
culture of not leaving, which I think was maybe not the
Mi viene
healthiest.
Roadrunner, ma forse non è.
Maybe like a college dorm room kind of vibe.
Your social circle was Xbox, your family was kind of Xbox.
But we all had a common purpose, a passion around games.
Being able to do something very different and revolutionary was where you were getting our energy from.
Because we were still young, we had moments where we were like, wait a minute, like, am I the best person to be doing this?
It was definitely a whole bunch of kids making decisions above their pay grade.
We had
Outrun,
a bunch
ok,
of
sì,
passionate
vero.
people who weren't necessarily 100% the most qualified people to be doing the jobs, running as fast as they can to make this thing happen.
We were young and we were naive.
You know, I always call it the best funded startup ever.
Me, in my 20s, you know, I had millions of dollars of budget, and there wasn't really any oversight. It was a little bit of the Wild West.
You know, I had to negotiate all the components that went in, hard drives, power supplies, the circuit board. Here I am, this kid, negotiating these deals that are hundreds of millions of dollars.
There were definitely some terrible decisions being made. But on the other hand, that level of freedom, you know, made Xbox happen.
What resulted was sort of a weird combination of craziness and genius.
Che situazione,
My
madonna.
recollection of that time was being so fascinated by watching this big company around us try to wrap its brain around what it meant to be an entertainment brand.
We didn't have a lot of interdependencies with the rest of the company.
It was Robbie, right, that had to go over to main campus and deal with Microsoft people.
One day, some executives came to visit the studio, and one of those people who came was Bill Gates. I showed him my cinematic tools and how I wrote scripts and how I laid down cameras in the engine. Bill spent time with Marty O'Donnell, our audio director.
Chief, whatever you're gonna do, make it quick.
Raining aliens! Oh, Jesus, why you do this to me?
The hopes of all the Covenant rest on your shoulders, Chieftain.
He spent time actually watching Marty play some of the themes from Halo.
Dietat. Diapa.
Grande applauso a Microsoft, sì, sono d'accordo.
He went to go see our art department where one of our 3D artists was sculpting a character in clay, making a maquette. And at the end of the Bill visit, we got in a conference room, the leads of the studio, and there was a pause. And you can see the magnificent machine that is his brain calculating down the Microsoft org chart from him at the top all the way down to the crazy artists in this studio in a gravel pit, literally. And Bill leaned forward and he said, "So there are artists who work here?" It really was a cultural change for the company.
La cosa è stupenda.
Xbox was already forcing people within Microsoft to think differently.
Dovete sempre rendervi conto di che cosa era la Microsoft di allora, quando Xbox non era ancora uscita, e che cosa stavano creando. Microsoft in quel momento, ripeto, al di là di alcuni giochi, perché comunque Age of Empires ed altri erano già usciti, ma erano giochi per PC, era comunque un altro ambito. Qui stavano per lanciare una console per il mercato di massa, ok? E quindi avete visto la reazione di Bill Gates quando è venuto a visitare? Passava del tempo con la gente che faceva delle creazioni artistiche e chiede: ma quindi ci sono degli artisti che lavorano qui? Ebbene sì, Chi diavolo ci aveva mai pensato che Microsoft avrebbe veramente pagato degli artisti in pianta stabile in uno dei loro progetti importanti, oltretutto? Non è mica una cosa così, campata in aria. Oggi la divisione gaming di Microsoft è una fetta piuttosto importante degli affari di Microsoft, ma allora era una cosa veramente particolare. Eh sì, riguardo al documentario, ve l'ho già detto, sì, mostra il dettaglio tutto, storia, volti che hanno costruito tutte e che continuano a costruire, assolutamente, esatto, Nox. È un bel documentario che voglio vedere insieme a voi proprio per questo.
But what really mattered was changing public perception. Behind the scenes, software engineers were hard at work building Xbox's capabilities. Now, the hardware team had a chance to win over the doubters on a big stage at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas.
CES was a trade show where companies from around the world would come to unveil the latest in technologies.
A lot of buying decisions and retailers got made at that show for the holiday season, and so we had a lot of proving to do. The press was skeptical, gamers were skeptical. You don't know how to do this stuff. You've never done this before. Good luck. The gaming industry is not a believer.
While Microsoft works on the insides of the new Xbox, it focuses an equal amount of attention on the outside.
I was the creative director of Xbox.
Horace Luke is the man. Horace Luke is the man.
What Horace had to do was take the thing that we had produced in hardware and then figure out some wrapping around it. First time we ever showed him, like, hey, you're gonna need to put this board that we're about to manufacture for, you know, millions of consoles into something that looks good. He's like, what the
My office was where everybody brought their ideas, from the technology team to the design team to the management team.
At the time that we were building the original Xbox, there were no other consoles with a hard drive or an Ethernet port.
So how do we put something around this that vents heat, that survives a drop test, and looks cool?
You have to fit all of this, of course, into a box that's not going to be giant sitting in your living room.
It was a constant battle between the different groups. I went through thousands of different sketches, trying to jam it and shrink it in every way possible into a box.
I remember him saying, like, well, maybe we just got to slim it down. Like, you know, we'll just dress it in black.
Everything was very aggressive looking. The console itself was large. It was bulging on the top.
It looked like the engine cowling on a Dodge Hemi. It was the physical embodiment of power, like no other console's ever been designed like this.
It was quite a miracle to fit everything in that box. Looking back today, you say the thing is huge, but in comparison to the PC of the 90s, it was tiny.
It is a small miracle that we actually were able to pull this off. And it looked awesome.
The 2001 Consumer Electronics Show is packed with every new gadget and gizmo about to hit stores.
CES 2001 in Las Vegas, in the Convention Center Hall. Bill Gates was there.
CES will actually give us a better idea of just where Microsoft is going to fit into the gaming market.
For the very first time, Microsoft was going to get to show off its final Xbox hardware design.
Good morning. Welcome to CES.
Everybody felt like we were on the verge of doing something special, historic.
For the first time, let me now unveil Xbox.
But when you show up as the third entrant into the space with well-established competitors, you have to break out. You have to be bold.
How do you unveil a product in a way that might surprise the world and get the world to see Microsoft doing something differently?
If you smell what The Rock is cooking.
The Rock says, we decided to bring The Rock to CES.
There was honestly some disbelief, like
Così.
Bill Gates, The Rock, like what's going on here?
Thank you, Bill.
It was really like muscle-bound Hollywood meets, gamer geek of the tech world.
Just might appear that The Rock and Bill Gates don't have a heck of a lot in common. Well, The Rock's here to say that can't be farther from the truth. The Xbox is everything The Rock is. Cutting edge, powerful, exhilarating.
And they were funny together. Like, it actually worked.
And they looked like they were best friends.
I mean, The Rock doesn't impress easily, Bill, you know that, but I'm pretty damn impressed with what we're seeing here today. And considering that this Xbox at this moment is only running on 1/5 of the system's power, it's very impressive. Bill, do you have any idea what The Rock would be like if he were only running on 1/5 of his power?
Well, I would think that...
It doesn't matter what you think, Bill. I'm sorry, Bill. It's just a force of habit. Rock apologizes.
It went well. We showed nothing, technically, but it started to build the excitement.
We gave it 5 out of 5 stars. We really like the Xbox a lot. You throw in an 8 gigabyte hard drive, a 10100 Ethernet adapter, and you basically have the most powerful
8 giga di hard disk, ragazzi. 20 anni fa erano queste le dimensioni.
Around the console, Microsoft was under tremendous pressure to build a portfolio of hit games before the Xbox launch.
By the time they had announced that they wanted to do Xbox to the time when we needed to launch was an incredibly short period of time. We didn't really have the luxury of saying, start building a game from ground up. That was almost impossible. What we were looking for were games that were partially in development, ports already in development. We went out and started to look for developers all over the world.
A barnstorming tour across North America, Europe, and ultimately Japan to create some sort of excitement around the console and convince game developers in particular that we could be successful.
All right, boys, let's roll.
One day we presented a new idea from a small game publisher that had come to us and said, hey, we want to dust off one of the 2D games that we had done for PC. We're going to really invest in it. We think it's going to be really exciting.
And these newly important executives in Xbox who would review all the pitches from publishers and developers, they said, I don't think that game is going to be able to make the transition from 2D to 3D.
They felt that it was complicated. They didn't really understand the user interface. They thought that it was based on a game that hadn't been all that successful. To my surprise, it was rejected.
And that game was called Grand Theft Auto 3.
Già.
Capito?
It ended up selling 14.5 million units. It was the top-selling game of 2001 and would have been the top-selling game of 2002 if it wasn't beaten by its own sequel.
It was the pass heard around the industry. Despite seeing Grand Theft Auto 3 go to PlayStation, Microsoft was still well-positioned to attract other developers to its platform.
Aveva appena perso Grand Theft Auto, giusto per capirci, ok? Il genere di cose che dici, quale pantheon di divinità devo insultare dopo una cosa del genere?
We needed a vibrant and strong third-party lineup of games that customers would love, and we wanted the industry to look at us as something that was going to be worthy of development. We wanted to have the very best games.
On March 13, 2001, Microsoft put their commitment to developers on public display at their GameStock event in Seattle.
Thanks and welcome to GameStock 2001. What you're seeing is a sneak peek at what's to come on Xbox. We're going to start off with a game whose vision was really just too big to fit in the PS2, so we brought it over to the Xbox.
Our characters certainly aren't the muscle-bound superheroes, that we want to be. They're more like the poor, sad schmucks that most of us really are.
Getting Oddworld, that was important. It was an established PlayStation franchise, beloved by the console game community.
That's the last damn Gambit there is!
We had a chance to work with an amazing creator in Lorne Lanning. He did all the voice acting for his own game.
So Munch had these things we called fuzzles, and they were like, me, 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 and Munch would be like, you got to come over and do this for me. So and then Abe's like, come on, guys, let's go. And they were really vulnerable characters living in extremely dangerous worlds that you're trying to keep them alive, but when they get whacked, it's hilarious.
Next, we're really happy to announce our new relationship with one of the premier racing developer teams in the world, Bizarre Creations.
Project Gotham is a new product for Xbox.
Questo io me lo ricordo solo di nome.
The whole environment is completely mapped to the entire surface of this vehicle.
Project Gotham Racing was based on
Ragazzi, ricordate sempre che era il 2001,
as how fast you cross the finish line.
For us, it was an opportunity to make this amazing, really accessible, fun, arcade racing game.
It's a really important part of our launch, and that was just the beginning.
Hardcore
freestyle snowboarding. This is only one mountain of 7 international mountains we'll be bringing to you in ANT.
That double-ended axe is pretty wicked looking, and we can tell this is a hand-to-hand fighting game.
Playing a football game, you want to kick your buddy's butt so hard he's going to wear it for a helmet.
And that's it for our show today. I hope you got to see everything that you wanted. Did you see everything? Oh, I feel like I am forgetting something. What was it? Oh, Halo. Hey, how could I forget Halo?
Hey everybody, so I'm
Ed
Jason.
ecco qua.
I'm one of the co-founders of Bungie and the lead on Halo.
Ed ecco qua. Probabilmente il franchise di Xbox
Bungie
più
was a
riconoscibile.
Mac-first developer. That's where they started. That's where they'd had their success with Marathon and Myth 2.
But Bungie was also dealing with the aftermath of a catastrophe. Myth 2, one of their hottest titles, had an installer bug that could erase a user's entire hard drive. In order to fix the bug and keep the company above water and working on new games, they needed a serious cash infusion.
Apparently they had this thing called Halo. I hadn't seen it yet. Some of my guys had. They had multiple games into development, but all I wanted was this new thing that they were working on. So we did a deal and bought out the company, and they started to work on Halo.
That's really when true development began on what the game would be. When we were purchased, Halo was not a game. There was no real story. There was no real sense of what the gameplay tempo would be like. We knew it was powerful to control a space marine who moved fast and could jump into a sophisticated vehicle and, haul ass around this alien world. And that was it.
What do you think, Jason? See it?
People knew about Halo. They knew that we'd been acquired by Microsoft. They knew about Xbox. They knew we were still working on the game. That period of getting Halo from a series of prototypes to on a disc playable by an Xbox was just a mad rush to get this game done. But there was this excitement that we had something special.
It makes me very nervous to actually play this for you. Welcome to Halo on the Xbox.
We started off that demo showing you flying to the land in a Covenant ship, running around the environment, getting in a vehicle, doing all those, building block Halo things. We had our test environment, what we called a B30, the island map in the middle of the water with Halo in the background. It was just fun to play. GameStock was that real first coming out party for us. And it was just that moment where I think the whole organization began to wake up to, oh, there's something really special here.
Thank you, that's it. Good night.
Xbox had made a high-risk bet on Halo. At the time, first-person shooters were considered PC games. The only right way to play was with a keyboard and mouse.
At the time, people
C'è qualcuno che lo
thought,
pensa
well, how are you going
tuttora.
to translate mouse and keyboard game into a console game?
Però a quanto pare
Dual-stick first-person shooters had almost never been done on a console.
I remember right before the demo, Ed was very clear. He's like, hey, when you're playing, make sure that people see the controller. What we need to demonstrate is you can play a shooter with thumbsticks, maneuvering around the environment.
You can go back and you can look. Adamant blog posts that shooter games, like Doom, would never work with a game controller.
Can people actually play a first-person shooter on a controller like this? Is the audience going to accept it?
While gamers wrestled with the idea of a first-person shooter on a console, critics also keyed in on a not-so-tiny issue.
I don't like the controller. Unfortunately, it's big. I think it's too big.
The Duke, they call it. The Duke wasn't a small controller. It didn't feel cheap. I felt like you could kill somebody with it.
You had to have gorilla hands to work with this thing. It was the industry's biggest game controller.
The Duke controller was like a newborn baby. I mean, the thing is like 9 pounds, 3 ounces. You had to kind of hug it.
As an adult with big hands, you can hold it farther back and it's really comfortable and cool.
It was done bass-ackward, as most things were on the original Xbox.
To get to that design, we kind of used the human factors ergonomic approach.
For those of us with smaller hands, we all thought, oh my God, did all these guys just sit in a room and go, oh yeah, this is gonna be great?
It was like, oh,
yeah, this is totally not going to work for us. And it was like, okay, this is a problem.
Perhaps we didn't take into account a full range of hand sizes.
There's no way we could ship Duke in Japan. People couldn't use it there. There was almost a plea, Carlson, you've got to find a way to make this smaller, please.
We knew it wasn't the right thing, but we didn't have enough time. E3 is coming up, and so we had to go with what we had.
Ebbene sì, era un bestione veramente
On May
scomodo.
17th, 2001, Global Gaming's biggest event,
Periferica sottovalutato,
E3,
controller,
kicked off in Los
spendono
Angeles.
milioni e milioni di dollari per il design del controller.
For Team Xbox, it was the most important public test for their new console before a looming November launch date.
We're trying to make an impression at
ciao.
E3, and we don't know what hardware we're going to be able to show. And are we going to try to show a lot or a little? Should we show games at all?
We were heads down, focused on having all of our games prepped for E3, and it nearly killed us.
It's Broadway, it's opening night. You're going to read the reviews the next morning, and you're either hot or you're a flop.
I was pretty eager to get to E3 and get hands-on with the Xbox. But your first time making hardware is painful. And what you demo and what ends up on the store shelves are often very different things. And so I was really skeptical that this Xbox is going to be ready.
It's a pleasure for me to be the first to welcome you to Los Angeles for what I'm sure is going to be quite an exciting week. So it's 8 a.m. in the morning. The hardware team is like literally using duct tape to get the box done. Sony had their event the night before and a party afterwards. This was going to be our coming out party, and we now have a hungover media group at 8 o'clock in the morning coming to see Xbox. That is not where you want to be. We've made Xbox a reality. And you can see here, if I slide this down, Xbox itself. Now live and ready to go. I walk out on stage, and I do my first line. And in fact, if I press this little button here on the front, and then I, hit the magic button that's supposed to start the Xbox, you'll see Xbox will actually start up. Bring that video up.
E invece?
We can bring that video up. And nothing happens. Nothing happened. Well, if we could bring the video up, Xbox would be live and starting and running. I didn't know what to do, so I just went on. So it's with great confidence that on November the 8th, in the North American market, you'll be able to go into retail stores.
In less than a year's time, you're going to release this thing into the wild, and people are going to be able to play it, and you're going to love it. And it doesn't turn on.
It was a devastating moment.
As the hardware planner, my heart just sank.
And you'll be able to get a box just like this with Xbox in it.
It was a disaster.
A legendary sort of press conference snafu.
We had to convince the press very quickly that we had a box that worked, and we needed to get their hands on these games as quickly as we possibly could so we could wash away that moment that we had on stage.
We're very excited about that. But the disasters kept rolling.
The Xbox wasn't done yet. The graphics hardware that they were running on was running about half the speed of what we expected the final product to be at. Basically, I'm making excuses for it was slow.
Microsoft had never had a meaningful presence at E3 before. The booth was packed.
We decide to show Halo because we feel like we have to show what's going to be our key title.
In terms of the games we were working on, Halo had the biggest role. And so it was the E3 demo on the floor.
So many people were coming in with huge curiosity about what it was capable of, and I was completely disappointed. I'm like, the frame rate's terrible, the split screen stuff, it's kind of cool, but it just doesn't feel like it's powerful enough.
On the show floor, the unfinished game seemed to fall short of its original promise of revolutionary.
Ed ecco qua una cosa che purtroppo ancora è molto presente nell'industria videoludica, ovvero il correre per presentare qualcosa affrettando i tempi e non presentando al pubblico un prodotto finito. Ora, c'è chi potrebbe dire sì, succede anche con i giochi proprio al lancio, e io sarei perfettamente d'accordo con voi, ma quella è un'altra questione. Sto parlando delle cose presentate maluccio. Tipo, ancora ogni tanto succede di vedere dei trailer di giochi in rendering interno e i trailer vanno con cali di frame rate. Vi è capitato di vederli? Sì, penso proprio di sì. Bene. E questa è una cosa che purtroppo è ancora presente adesso, figuriamoci allora. E questi che stavano correndo per realizzare il prodotto hanno pensato bene di mettere insieme questa cosa e senza avere la sicurezza che tutto funzionasse correttamente. Prima con la console che non si accende e subito dopo con il gioco di punta della console, cioè Halo, che poteva essere giocato con una demo lì alle 3, con la console in uscita meno di un anno dopo, ed era una merda la demo. Bene, molto bene.
Gameplay. So now you have a bad launch event, and the key title that's going to carry the day looks bad, and people start to think we're crazy.
Allora, aspetta, sì, ma era un caso eccezionale dove aveva una fetta del diavolo, il giorno sono il 90% stronzi e basta. No e sì allo stesso tempo, cioè anche oggi c'è chi sta facendo una corsa con una fretta del diavolo sotto altro tipo di pressioni. È in realtà una cosa molto comune, solo che sono in realtà aziende che sono in questo campo da tanto tempo, no? Non tutte, alcune. E il mercato videoludico ormai stradiffuso e si sanno i problemi che ci possono essere e c'è molta più conoscenza anche di questo tipo di dinamiche. Quindi sì, senza dubbio oggi sono meno scusabili che in passato queste cose, ma credo che molte di queste tuttora succedano per fretta, pressione, pepe al culo da parte di qualcuno. Volete che sia la dirigenza, che siano gli azionisti, che siano i giocatori, ci credo poco, ma mettiamoci anche quelli, eccetera, eccetera.
Shortly thereafter E3, Peter Moore, he's at Sega, and he says, hey, I want to give you our feedback from E3.
That E3 was critical for Sega to stay alive.
In February of 2001, Sega made the decision to discontinue the Dreamcast and focus exclusively on software. Part of that transition included
è stato un momento terribile per molti.
games for Xbox. But a disastrous showing at E3 from Microsoft meant danger for Sega.
As we were moving from being a first party to a classic third-party publisher, we absolutely needed somebody like a Microsoft to get us through this difficult period.
And so Peter comes up to me. He looks at me and says, well, here's our feedback. Retailers aren't going to stock you, developers aren't going to develop for you, and consumers think the product's not very good and it's too expensive. I took it very personally. I'm the leader of the team, it's my responsibility, it's my obligation, and I felt like I failed. This is my resignation letter to my boss, Rick Paluzzo. I wrote this on Friday, May 25th, 2001 at 2:02 a.m. It starts off, my status on Xbox, importance high. This is not going to be an easy email to write, and frankly, I've postponed doing it several times. The short summary is that my direct involvement in Xbox needs to end, and sooner than either of us would like. I think this is both in my best interest and the best interest of Microsoft.
But Bill Gates and Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer did not accept Robbie's resignation.
They just encouraged me to get it done and said, you've done a great job, keep at it, we're with you. I mean, there wasn't much more they could say, right? There's no advice they could give me. They were too far away to say, hey, go do this. The only person who could figure that out was me. I never told anybody on the team. Rick and Steve and Bill. They're the only people that ever knew. That gives you the sense how personally challenging it was for a person who hates losing.
Questa è un'altra cosa molto importante. Uno potrebbe pensare, in realtà me ne sto rendendo conto, cioè mi sto rendendo conto che questa cosa è in realtà molto molto diffusa. Cioè, se magari certe cose sono più comprensibili al grande pubblico quando si tratta di team indie molto piccoli, come per esempio gli iconici sviluppatori di Super Meat Boy, o comunque piccoli team veramente di 3 o 4 persone che realizzano un gioco indie e ci credono fortemente e quindi per loro la sfida è personale, tanto, in questo caso è molto più comprensibile per il grande pubblico, ma vi garantisco che leggendo i libri di Jason Schreier, leggendo di queste cose, guardando documentari come questi, si capisce che in realtà in gran parte dell'industria, anche in realtà gigantesche come Microsoft, come Sony, pensate agli giganteschi studi di Sony, eccetera, molti dei progetti, delle varie cose, eccetera, sono viste come molto, molto personali. No? Non è solo appannaggio di piccolissimi team di sviluppatori indie. Se lavori per tanto tempo a un progetto, anche se sei in uno studio di sviluppo con altre 800 persone, diventa una cosa in buona parte personale. Nell'industria videoludica è molto più raro, rispetto ad altre industrie, trovare gente che semplicemente sta là e fa il suo lavoro da ufficio, timbra il cartellino all'ora che deve e va a casa all'ora che deve, come un semplice meccanismo, la catena di montaggio. No. Ci sono invece persone che ci mettono un sacco di anima nel proprio lavoro, e anche quando sono in aziende grosse la prendono sul personale, che se vogliamo è uno dei segreti del successo di questa industria. Cioè la gente che sta proprio incarognita per fare delle cose, in qualunque realtà.
Electronic Arts. It's one of the biggest game makers in the world, and its CEO, Larry Probst, was quoted in the Financial Times as saying this, that Microsoft has a lot to do over the next few months. They are on a death march now.
I don't think anybody had an easy ride to launch.
All we're thinking about is getting the device done so that we can make launch date. If you didn't have console units on retail shelves for a holiday, you missed a year. That holiday was vital.
There were a lot of late nights. We were trying to engineer and design something that we'd never done before.
We're building the technology, we're building the hardware inside.
The Xbox circuit board is about yay big. It had probably in the order of 800 parts.
Parts of the Xbox were coming from all over the world.
Like Hungary and Mexico.
You know, there were people who went and lived in China, in a hotel room, for weeks on end.
We would be flying back and forth with hard drives to get stuff back to test.
Microsoft had never shipped a console before. It turns out there's a lot of regulation everywhere in the world. You had to be certified by the right agency and approved.
Their approval took longer than we expected. Parts wound up getting delayed from suppliers.
It was every day, come into the office, see a fire, try to put the fire out.
We were tracking the hardware, tracking the components, tracking our launch dates at such an accelerated pace.
It was chaotic.
Chaos, total chaos.
People themselves were doing Herculean things.
We would sleep at the office.
This was all happening in real time.
It had just never been done before.
Xbox was
Giusto perché, insomma,
job I will
le
ever
pressioni
have
sono
ever
poche.
had. I will never do it again.
Every day was a challenge, both sort of technically and professionally, but also personally.
You know, you were lucky if you had a personal relationship that survived launch. Mine did not.
It's kind of like you're on this horse that's bucking and you're thinking, okay, is this ever gonna stop or will this be the end of me?
8 to 12 weeks before launch. We're coming in way hotter than anyone expected to.
We doubted whether the hardware was going to be done in time. We're not sure any of the games are going to be done in time. The ship is still on fire, the plane hasn't landed, all the metaphors for crashes you can think of. But in the end, that team believed.
There's no second try at the Xbox, so this was a Hail Mary culture. And if we were able to succeed, it was going to be absolutely epic.
It's a touchdown.
November 15th, 2001. Xbox was released in Times Square.
We painted Times Square green. Everywhere you looked, you saw the Xbox green logo.
Xbox was up on all these big billboards. One of those moments in your life you're never going to forget.
Posso dire una cosa intanto che mi è venuto in mente anche se questo succedeva negli Stati Uniti, vabbè, allora ok, a Times Square, a New York, è d'accordo, quindi voglio dire, non è che sia successo in tutti quanti gli Stati Uniti, d'accordo? Però se ci pensate è una cosa che in Italia, per esempio, fatichiamo a vedere ancora oggi, e in Italia, per esempio, ci sorprendiamo quando arriva, che ne so, una statua di Aloy messa lì per fini pubblicitari, non mi ricordo neanche più dove l'avevano messa, ma queste grandi mosse pubblicitarie in Italia faticano un po' ad arrivare, mentre in America già nel 2001 queste cose succedevano e avevano praticamente colorato di verde l'intera Times Square per il lancio di Xbox. Per carità, è una cosa grossa e si parla di Microsoft, però insomma succedevano queste cose. Non lo so, fa un po' specie.
Here we are, a huge line of
A vedere quei
gamers
panini
down
mi è
the
venuta
street
fame.
waiting to buy this Xbox.
20 years old, first time going to the city alone. I get on a bus and I show up in Times Square. I go straight to the new Toys R Us and I'm looking for the line. I'm prepared to stay there all day.
We worked with the city to open up the WWF restaurant across the street from Toys R Us Times Square. And that's where all the gamers came first.
They have Xbox consoles set up everywhere. It pretty much just allowed all the gamers to hang out and play and test out all these games.
Bill wanted to be on site. He wanted to help hand over the first console.
Bill Gates is down at a gaming system, shook my hand and said, "You ready to play?" And then we were playing Fusion Frenzy. And Bill Gates made a comment that he had actually taken 2 weeks off of work just to practice this game. He wanted to beat the gamers.
Does anyone know what the shoot button is? A, I think. A? Let's check.
He couldn't beat me. I absolutely took pleasure in beating Bill Gates, yes.
Thank you for this. Been waiting a long time.
Everybody got a tag on their wrist, and when your color was called, we brought you across the street to Toys R Us, and Bill was there to hand out the very first Xbox.
Tonight's kind of a celebration. It's after a lot of hard work.
So they count down. Bill Gates has it rung in on the register. Price is up there, $299.99.
5, 4, 3, 2.
One hits and he hands me the box and says, "Don't worry, I'm buying it for you." And I turn around with even more excitement and raise my prized possession over my head.
Edward Glucksman became the first gamer in the world to ever own an Xbox.
It was a magical night.
I'm a 20-year-old kid looking for a console. That's all I wanted to do. First time going to the city alone, I managed to get sent home in a limo.
Instant celebrity. Every night. That's right.
They actually did it. You know, Microsoft actually
fanno fila per il nuovo
built
iPhone
and
per adesso
delivered
chi
this
se ne...
thing.
No, anche per altre
Feeling
cose.
was like, crying level of exhaustion and intense pride for the thing that we had made.
There's never been a prouder moment in somebody's early career. You know, I still have goosebumps today thinking about it.
I tell people that faith is a force multiplier. That team believed. And because that team believed, Xbox got done. If that team doesn't believe and they're just there doing their jobs, we never finish.
That small group of big personalities managed not only to convince Bill Gates and the board that we wanted to get into this nascent industry, but they also managed to get an entire organization of game people created and pointed in the right direction.
Go to the subway. The whole station is covered in Xbox logos. I had to sit down and started to cry, and even Kevin got emotional.
It was an impossible task that we should not have been able to do. I was tremendously proud of it. But at the same time, that was the end of that special moment in time that we were all able to be part of. It was the end of an era.
Io non ce l'ho mai avuta, la prima Xbox, neanche la 360. La mia prima Xbox è stata la One. Tra l'altro molto tardi.
Seamus Blackley left Microsoft for new adventures in the game industry.
Microsoft Xbox
Non prima di esservi presi tipo 6 mesi di riposo dopo quello che avevano combinato.
It's the games. Nobody actually really cares about the hardware. All they care about is the content.
To be successful, you have to give the gamers that platform-defining title. That you had to go out and buy an Xbox if you wanted to play.
Halo was like this gem, like this was going to be the diamond we offered up at Xbox launch.
But remember, Halo showed up at E3, 6 months before the game was supposed to launch, with pretty serious frame rate issues.
Sì. Immaginate un po' quelli che sapevano che era stato presentato in una demo così. Sì.
This is our lead title. Are we going to actually launch something that is this terrible game?
I think there was a bunch of panic.
people didn't see what they expected.
That was the part where people actually got super worried.
There was an incredible amount of pressure on Halo. If Halo wasn't a hit, then the future of Xbox really was in doubt.
E insomma, poco a poco di pressione. Ora, passiamo alla parte 2 direttamente, ragazzi, perché tanto qua, voglio dire, non penso che sia necessario fare troppi... Ops, ecco qua, un attimo. Mettiamo i sottotitoli giusti anche di qua, perché questi sono in inglese. Ecco qua. Andiamo subito alla seconda parte, ragazzi, Eccoci qua. Vai, c'è la seconda parte, che in realtà è il capitolo 4. Cool, now what? Figo. E mo? Quindi, adesso?
E3 2001, when we saw Halo, my friends and I, we were like,
Ooh, it's crashing, it's buggy, sounds terrible.
it seemed like Microsoft bit off more than they could chew.
And each build, it didn't seem to be improving at all.
Like at some point, it wasn't about making Halo perfect. Honestly, we were just focused on how do we get this thing on disc in time for launch.
There was an incredible pressure on Halo.
This is our lead title, and this is what we've got?
If this thing fails, it would all be for nothing. Xbox was finished.
There's a new contender in the video game wars.
Xbox
Famosa.
is going to be the future, truly the future of video games.
Xbox. Taking over the living room.
Limitless, connected digital entertainment.
You guys never understood.
The company is going to face fierce competition.
Sniper!
It's a ticking time bomb.
Makes me very nervous to actually play this for you.
Xbox getting a major overhaul.
A bold vision for the future of gaming.
Soon you will be food.
On Halo, we were doing the thing that people weren't quite sure would even work on a console, a first-person shooter, and the frame rate was terrible.
All of a sudden, we were in a new area, console games, and what do we know about console games?
I had only heard things about, it's not very good, really. Bungie may be a good studio, may be a fine studio, but the game wasn't really being received that well.
We're gonna make it, aren't we, sir?
With Halo and Xbox's fates intertwined, something drastic had to be done to get the game right. So, in a last-ditch effort, Ed Freeze and Bungie essentially put the development team under arrest.
Gesù
Freeze
Cristo.
have put Halo behind the curtain and won't let anybody see it. Won't let anybody talk to the Bungie team.
He's like, you guys seal yourself off, literally and metaphorically, and deliver a great game. Like our doors, I don't even think Ed could get into some of the Bungie doors.
I kept saying, hey, Ed, when can I play Halo? And he goes, well, not yet.
When we only had a couple more months before we had to get this thing into boxes.
Good to see you, Master Chief. Things aren't going well.
We had to stand up a complete game that was performant on new hardware. We had to create a compelling story with characters. We had to cut levels, take shortcuts, just a mad rush of long days, sleeping under desks, full-on old school crunch to get this game done.
There it is.
The one positive thing that comes out of crunch is ideation and invention and polish. Ultimately, that was one of the things that Bungie took very, very seriously, was polish.
For us at Bungie, this was a passionate effort to make the best game possible. But when you show up as Microsoft, you are open to a whole different level of criticism.
Yeah, that's cool. All right.
And Halo had the burden of showing up excellent in all ways. We had no idea Halo was going to be a hit. We hoped people would like it.
Here we go.
Hold it up!
But the rubber hits the road when you meet the gamer for real.
questi avevano praticamente la pressione di dover realizzare un gioco bene, ma questo Halo era diventato già prima del lancio di fatto considerato da tutti il titolo di punta di Xbox, e quindi di botto questo gruppo di sviluppatori si è ritrovato addosso questa gigantesca pressione. Io non voglio neanche immaginare come devono aver passato l'anno della loro vita precedente al lancio di Xbox questi ragazzi qua. Secondo me è stato una sorta di trauma. Devono aver avuto qualche tipo di malattia dopo.
Go faster! 3, 2, 1. Halo. Fourth and long. Anybody else? Halo? Halo, yeah. Halo.
I remember very vividly going to local launch events.
Hold it up!
Starting to look at chatter online with fan sites, and then game reviews, and then comments. And realizing, oh my God, people like it.
How the hell are we gonna beat this game?
Halo, which had problems entering the fray, came out on day one, and it was amazing. It was really amazing.
I just felt that sense of possibility.
Damn it, Jenkins! Fire your weapon!
That you could go anywhere and do
Un
anything.
videogioco deve avere successo e merito, non basta solo una bella trama, ma una questione di tecniche e contenuti. Ovvio che è così. Dipende anche molto dal genere, ma sì, perfettamente d'accordo.
Natural. You could tell like that it was going to be a breakthrough for first-person shooters.
I didn't care that I wasn't using a mouse. I was using a controller. I was in the Halo universe, and it was fantastic.
It was a bit of an epiphany of, oh, like you can do that? Like you can play this kind of game on a console? Awesome.
Halo was a phenomenon. That dual player mode was wow.
Landing on the beach with a warthog trying to protect Marines with Master Chief.
It just blew me away, man.
Banshee on flames comes down and lands on the ice and is skidding towards me across the ice, and it's gonna run me over and kill me, and it skids to a stop right in front of me. And I live. It was like I was there. It was like I had that experience.
With Halo, Microsoft had that platform to find.
Questo è Jack Tretton, ragazzi. Questo è stato il CEO di Sony Computer Entertainment, credo America, fino al 2014.
Title that you had to go out and buy an Xbox if you wanted to play, and that was something that I always envied and admired.
Halo forms so much of the backbone of, I think, what Xbox is.
Watching the feedback we were getting on Halo, the stories people were telling, it was a cultural moment.
You getting Halo? Oh, yeah. Good. Just checking.
Without Halo, we're not here.
Halo, Combat Evolved.
Microsoft estimated that they have sold 1 million copies of Halo in the US alone. 50% of Xbox owners are also Halo players.
Xbox was the Halo box. That's what made it work.
Halo broke ground in so many ways, in game control, camera control, storytelling, even art style. It inspired a lot of people to tell a different kind of story.
It changed the game for Xbox, but I also think it changed the way we look at first-person shooters.
First-person shooters had only really largely existed at scale on PC, and mapping those controls to the controller, they just did it right. It just felt right.
No one had done it that well before. No one had nailed it. They just nailed the controls.
So before Halo came out, the conventional wisdom was if you wanted to play a shooter, you had to do it on a PC because that's where you would have the precision with a mouse and keyboard to aim, make the small movements to land that headshot on your enemies. What Bungie did with the help of Microsoft's playtesting and user research labs was figure out how to get something that would approximate that feeling on a console where all you have is the 2 sticks to move and aim. They weren't the first to do a shooter on the console, but they did it best by far. And the influence of what Microsoft and Bungie were able to achieve is still being felt in games today.
Even today,
se ci
it's the
pensate,
largest
sì.
genre in console gaming. And
Sono stati i primi
really
a
because of
farlo
Halo,
in maniera
Xbox became
importante.
the console for first-person shooter fans.
The multiplayer was transcendent. It was just something that you didn't experience on any other platform.
Denis Sbarcatore, ciao. Grazie mille del follow, benvenuto.
Microsoft made a huge bet on broadband. Every single Xbox had an Ethernet port in the back, and it paid off in spades. You could use it for LAN parties and to system link on a LAN.
Oh my God! PC gamers understood the joy of the LAN, the local area network. You make a network of computers in a local area, which means you have to be face-to-face and nose to armpit with gamers.
Got the flag, I'm out the front. Oh, that's clean off.
And it's a fun experience. You can all be in a shared virtual world and run around and do things that you couldn't through a modem just because you're all there connected and it's higher speed. Microsoft ushered that in for consoles.
Manually plugging machines together to play games was not a new concept, but it had always required a lot of technical know-how. Now, the communal gaming experience wasn't just for computer geeks. It was for everyone.
Right now, we have this game going here, which is 16. Downstairs, I was just down there. They probably by now have at least a 16 game going on. They keep on bringing in more stuff, and it seems to be expanding.
It was a communal party, multiplayer atmosphere that you could have with a massive group of people and have multiple consoles all connected.
We'd get together at like 8 a.m. and play 16-player Halo all the way till 8 a.m. the next day.
I remember running an Ethernet cable up the stairs so I could have a friend bring his over and play.
I'd go to my buddy's house, and we're on 2 different floors. We're in 4 different rooms, because screen looking's a thing.
Man, the fights were legendary. You looked at my screen. No, I didn't. Yes, you did.
I can't see your screen. We'd make a little flyer at work, like Halo LAN
Il
party.
pezzo di cartone, questo ancora devo vedere.
Bring a controller, bring a TV. That changed everything about my social life for probably 10 years.
Questa è una cosa che purtroppo non ho mai vissuto, ragazzi. Però l'ho vissuta con il PC, quello sì.
Heavy ass TV. Flat screens weren't around back then.
You got it?
So I bought a PT Cruiser just so I could get my TV around and my Xbox.
That was a fashion statement to have an Xbox in the car back in the days with that big screen.
Give me a second, give me a second.
Your foot, your foot.
I know that's on flip. Ouch.
I remember playing nonstop and sitting there in my own puddle of sweat.
The minute you stepped into a multiplayer match on Halo, time just disappeared. You just got sucked in, and we would play all night long.
It provided me an experience I had never had on a console before, period.
Halo was a runaway hit that had spawned its own social scene, putting Microsoft in the big leagues with Sony and Nintendo for the first
È importantissima questa cosa.
Wasn't done. They saw a way to take those multi-room raucous LAN parties and make them global.
E questa cosa, ragazzi.
The initial concept for Xbox Live was one of those.
Isa serie su Halo no, alla fine no. Però non me ne hanno parlato bene.
Pitches, because they're pitches that even though they were in their infancy, they planted a seed of ideas that turned into something that had an impact on the entire industry. Maybe an impact on global culture.
We built an Ethernet port in every unit, and the idea is now we can actually have a networked community of gamers from living room to living room around the world, no matter what language you speak, no matter where you are in the world, and we can all be part of one bigger community. And that vision was like awesome.
Yeah!
There definitely was some skepticism about the idea of playing multiplayer games over the internet.
When we were scrambling to get Xbox done, and Xbox Live is like a vague fog in everybody's head. Nobody knew how that was going to work and whether it was going to be a good ecosystem and whether the quality would ever be there. And it became a huge point of tension in terms of how it was designed and how it was going to work. But we're going to do it.
Microsoft is putting literally billions of dollars on the line to back us, but the program was fraught with risk. It required technology that really hadn't been built anywhere in the industry before. And those kind of tech investments are always
Arcane è stato un caso miracolato. Vabbè, quello è uno dei prodotti più belli che abbia mai visto nell'animazione, cioè una cosa incredibile.
If they wanted to deliver a gaming experience unlike any other, they needed gamers to tell them exactly what they wanted.
We went out and talked to a whole bunch of gamers around the United States. One of the things that came back was that voice communications was going to be imperative.
You know, it is a good day to die, cheesemaker.
Nobody wanted to sit there and text with a typewriter, just taking out their buddies.
First thing was you had to get the starter kit. It had a headset in it. It's like,
You were talking about console gaming. What are you supposed to do with a headset?
The Xbox Communicator. It lets you talk to other gamers while you're playing.
This broke down the barriers of how you could speak. You simply banged on your headset and you could talk to anybody in the world that was on the platform.
Your defense is offensive. Your defense is offensive.
Building that global couch where people can talk and kind of virtually elbow each other with 4 gamers on 4 continents and have it all perfectly fluid through headsets, just as if they were sitting in the same room together. This was before Skype. So the notion of low latency, great quality voice, we had to go build out that tech.
I like this one. You did your own digital personal ID remembers your moves. That's a good idea.
Yeah. We're creating this giant gaming universe for gamers to play in over generations. We knew it was important to have this one identity that linked to you where you could build your legacy in gaming.
Your gamer tag. It's your identity on Xbox Live. The legend you build for yourself in this brand new gaming universe. Remember, you're building all your stats and friends in that name.
Rather than have a gamer tag for Madden, a separate gamer tag for Halo, it's like you just want to be known as one thing.
My gamer tag is the real B.
My gamer tag is Cowboy22.
A gamer tag is hero protagonist.
It's King Doug.
The Spaceman.
Xbox Live wanted to bring that fundamental instant fun into the world of online gaming.
You will never be without a game to play, anytime, day or night.
It was a revolution in online gaming.
Questa è una cosa importante, ragazzi. Qui mi fermo perché allora questa sembra una cosa assolutamente scontata al giorno d'oggi, con tantissimi giochi che creano esattamente questo, con una facilità imbarazzante. Ma voi dovete capire, ragazzi, che erano i primi anni del 2000. Questa cosa ancora praticamente non esisteva. O meglio, ovviamente c'erano i mezzi di comunicazione di un certo tipo e ognuno di noi, più o meno anche ai primi del 2000, qualcosa usava già. Ma non così, non con questo sistema che era particolarmente intuitivo e diretto. Se lo sono inventati loro per primi, praticamente. Applicato al mercato di massa del videogioco. Hai una Xbox? Puoi connetterti a internet? Bene, ti connetti a Xbox Live, hai il tuo gamer tag, hai la tua connessione, stai giocando a un gioco che ha anche qualcun altro? Bene, puoi giocarci insieme e c'è il tuo nome, puoi parlare con lui in maniera relativamente semplice. All'epoca fu una rivoluzione e fu una delle cose, soprattutto negli Stati Uniti, che rese incredibilmente popolare Xbox. Fu quasi un fenomeno culturale e ve lo mostra nel documentario. Dopo questa cosa l'ho approfondita dopo, non l'ho vissuta direttamente. Quasi mi dispiace. Anzi, senza il quasi.
Finally feeling confident. They had the technical know-how to build Xbox Live. But on the other side of that challenge was another, even bigger question. If they built it, would gamers pay for it?
The technology was in the box, but the commitment from a player, we just
giustamente era un abbonamento questo qua.
Firstly, someone's going to pay $50 a month for broadband, but they also have to go tell their friends that it's worth it.
I've never been shy to share my opinion. And there was one time where I was talking to Jay and we ended up arguing about it all the way into the hallway. And it was me saying, this Xbox Live idea you have is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Like, I hate this idea. Somebody's gonna pay $50 for multiplayer games when they can get it for free.
And people did laugh at that and said, why would you pay for access? Because you're already paying for your game.
It wasn't just me. It was like an entire division worth of people saying, what are you, nuts?
So this experience had to be amazing. That was crazy to people. Like, who's gonna play multiplayer if they have to pay for it?
Microsoft is taking the Xbox game system to a whole new level.
Xbox Live. Future of video games arrives today. Microsoft is putting the Xbox online. Today, the Xbox goes live.
Manning is at his home in Indianapolis, Hasselbeck at his in Seattle, and they're about to play each other in a video game using the Microsoft Xbox console.
Oh, sit down. Son,
Don't your coaches tell you can't take a sack in the red zone? That is quarterback 101.
Last night, we had gamers all over the country playing against celebrities here in LA, where we had our big premiere party.
We're checking the perimeter. All right, so here I go.
Sempre stato sul pezzo. Oddio. Lo vedremo nel documentario.
The launch of Xbox Live was almost like a second launch for Xbox.
Blow up and kill everything in sight. Is that what you're getting? That's the idea, man. It's just like doing RoboCop.
I'm gonna open up a can of whoop ass and see how it tastes.
The two launch titles that I have such fond memories of, Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon, which was a port of the PC game, and Mech Assault, which was a third-person action-oriented take on Mech Warrior.
Just light bulbs went off, just the magic was there.
Live let us add the element of community and human society to game design.
It was just immediately clear to me that this was going to be like the thing for video games.
What Live did for Xbox was it created this community that once you got into it and attached to it, it was very hard to leave.
I met so many people online playing games that I never would have been cool with based off of us playing each other, me beating him beating me, him having some great plays.
And there's an extraordinary number of like 50-year-old males that play Xbox Live together. And they will not go to another system because their buddies aren't gonna go. So they're only gonna buy a system to hang out with the guys so they can play while the kids are sleeping and they're gonna play Call of Duty or something, right?
Every night, me and my homies be on a party with about 15 or 20 of us, and we be talking about what happened in the day if we playing the games, and it's just like a great gossip line for some grown-ass men.
We had forecasted how many Xbox Live subscribers we were gonna have, you know, month 1, month 2, month 6, etc.
Hey, we got 50,000. Hey, we got 100,000. Hey, we got 1 million. Hey, we got 2 million. It just kept growing.
And that happened like I wouldn't say instantly, but pretty damn close. It happened very, very fast.
Xbox Live was unprecedented. Everybody else's version paled in comparison.
What you think of gaming today, being on a headset, talking with friends.
Intanto una valanga non sapeva quando fosse fondata nel bianco e nero. Ma ha inventato qualcosa che è andato molto al di là di quello che poi avevano pensato inizialmente.
Xbox Live could be considered one of the very first social media platforms.
Before Facebook, even before MySpace, Microsoft really did pioneer the very first interactive, dynamic social platform.
Quite frankly, Microsoft proved to the world that online multiplayer was going to be the key to the future.
Gamers flocked to Xbox Live in numbers that even took optimists within Microsoft by surprise. But while the platform was teeming with newly devoted fans who loved sniping their college buddies from different continents, there was one consistent complaint. What happened to the game that put Xbox on the map? Where was Halo?
When we started working on the second Halo game, the weight of expectation came crashing down on us.
Halo 2 had to be a blockbuster movie, and that was always a danger, is what if we just pushed to do this big AAA spectacle and miss the heart of what made Halo a success in the first place?
God damn, we have a lot of work to do between now and E3.
Everybody on the team had a different idea about what being more excellent would be. We loved that you could get into vehicles, for example, but it frustrated us that you couldn't, like, tear someone out of a vehicle and jump into their vehicle and take it over. So boarding vehicles became a huge design initiative.
Look out!
We were really good at coming up with great ideas. We weren't quite as good at production discipline and figuring out how to right-size all those ideas, fit them into a box, timeline, and ship on time.
When I got there, they had reached a point in development where they were basically going to have to cut half the game and in some ways start from scratch on a lot of the promises that they'd made themselves.
Within a year, it became clear it wasn't working. Just the way the game felt, Jason really wasn't happy with. He looked at the game. Yes. And he came to me and said, you know, we have a problem. I'm gonna have to rework a bunch of the work, and it's effectively gonna add another year to the schedule.
Jason, help. There was a lot of pressure. How could we ship a better game than Halo? And from Microsoft's point of view, Xbox's point of view, how can you ship that game as quickly as possible?
This is now by far the most valuable franchise that we have. You know, this is Halo. We can't screw this up.
Jason's saying he needs a new year, time for me to step up and do my job as a boss.
I do know that Ed went to bat for us.
Ed was very much a purist. He was about creating great games and giving the dev teams the time they need. And that is at conflict sometimes with actually making a profit.
So to me, it was a no-brainer. But Robbie wanted to put it in front of the other leads on the team because Halo was so important. It's going to affect, you know, the Xbox Live team and what they do. It would affect the continued marketing of the platform and things like that.
Microsoft back then was a technology company. Software shipping on time at quality was a big part of the rhythm of the business.
So we go in and we have the meeting, and Robbie basically goes around the room and takes a vote. And it went around the room and everybody voted to keep it on the original schedule. I walked out of the room and basically I just threatened to quit immediately. Robbie gave in, calmed me down, and he agreed, and he gave us the extra year for Halo 2.
Ed got the Bungie team the time they needed to finish the game, but the delayed launch had a ripple effect throughout Microsoft.
Really, that Bungie meeting was the beginning of the end for me. When I walked out of there, it wasn't just that I was mad, it was the first time I could imagine leaving the company. I mean, I'd been there since I was in college. I had a lot of stuff going on in my life. About to turn 40, I had been at the company a long time and made plenty of money, so I didn't need to be there. Within the next 6 months, I quit.
In January 2004, Ed Freeze resigned from Microsoft, while Bungie set out to finish what they'd started, creating a sequel to one of the most popular titles in console history.
E questi sono
The
abbandoni,
extra year
diciamo,
Freeze bought them
pesanti.
turned out to make all the difference. Not only did it elevate the game, it built fan excitement to a whole new level.
The lead up to Halo 2, I had never experienced anything like that in my life. It was genuinely a pop culture event, and I don't say that lightly.
7,000 stores are opening on midnight.
They've been waiting a long time for this.
They were chanting Halo 2.
Negozi aperti a mezzanotte.
Just felt like something new was going to happen in entertainment.
Because Halo 2 is the best. Halo 2 is everything.
Xbox's Halo 2 is expected to generate more revenue in 24 hours than day one sales of any full-feature movie in entertainment history.
Halo 2 is probably, one of the biggest phenomenons to ever hit my life and a lot of people's lives.
It was the biggest day in entertainment history.
Halo 2 sold 2.4 million units in 24 hours.
Here was a video
Cristo
for the
santissimo.
first time really crushing movies.
Ed erano sempre I primi del 2000,
For the video game industry.
This game is simply the best game on the planet.
I played Halo 2 with my friends literally every night for at least a year. That's how transformative Halo 2 was for me, and what it did for Xbox Live. There had been nothing like that ever.
With the innovative success of Xbox Live and a full-blown cultural phenomenon in Halo 2, it seemed like Microsoft's bets were paying off. Xbox was even surpassing Nintendo in US sales. On a winning streak, the team put their eyes on an industry-changing follow-up to the Xbox.
When I arrived at Microsoft, it was my job to think about the way that the gamer was going to be using this 2, 3, 4 years after launch, and how do you continue to deliver content. We started then to plan this multi-billion-dollar investment that became the Xbox 360.
Xbox 360 is the new entertainment
C'è
system.
il passaggio
It's designed around high def, wireless,
importantissimo.
and always connected. And it doesn't stop there. It's totally personalizable, so you can change the way it works and the way it plays, and find your friends no matter what you're doing.
When they unveiled the 360, I saw a very powerful console with a stunning interface, with a focus on being online, always connected. This was all stuff that they had sort of experimented with the original Xbox and Xbox Live, but now they were building it into the core experience of the console.
Xbox 360 was 5 to 10 times more powerful than the original Xbox. To achieve that, we had to push technology and solutions that didn't exist in the previous generation. We had to go explore things that had never been done.
As opposed to leveraging a lot of off-the-shelf components and existing technologies, we're actually building a brand new processor and chipset for this particular console. So we're taking a lot more of that engineering effort on internally.
At the heart of the Xbox 360 are 3 IBM CPUs.
Whatever you'd heard about the PlayStation 2 emotion engine, whatever big wild dreams you had created in your head, we needed to create a leapfrog product that said, hey, this is even more powerful. This is the most powerful console on the planet. And so we evolved the Xbox from a powerful console that plays all the games you love to a console that connects you to all your friends and connects you to a lifestyle, this digital entertainment lifestyle.
We involved movies, we got content generated that you could access, music.
The magic in Xbox 360 is it does so much more than the original Xbox did.
Xbox 360 Guide, it is your launch pad to all of your digital entertainment.
Here you can store your pictures, videos, and music.
We've also added a new concept called achievements, sort of a record of everything you've accomplished across your entire library of games. With Xbox 360, we've created technology that will enable people from every age and every corner of the planet to gather together in new ways. A product with games at its core, surrounded by limitless, connected digital entertainment.
Everything we were trying to do had just never been done before.
We're really focusing hardcore on building an online experience for Xbox around games.
Gaming was always first, but this was no longer just the ability for you to play a game online. This was breakthrough thinking.
We built Xbox 360 with a mission.
They showed it as a media hub in your living room. You could connect other devices to it, you could play your photos, you could do this, that, the other. They targeted a broad range of gamers. They were building this thing to be future-proof.
Microsoft's new Xbox 360 will be first to hit stores' shelves this fall.
It's huge. It's a big, big statement for us. The next generation of consoles starts now.
Dato il passaggio generazionale che c'è stato, è stato veramente importante. E la 360 è probabilmente l'Xbox più amata tuttora.
Well, from Indianapolis, Indiana.
And Kansas City.
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, Hollywood. I came in from Minneapolis. Land of Florida.
That's the only way to get it on the 360. You hear me?
Hey, this is Xbox Live's Major Nelson. We're here at 0 Hour in the Mojave Desert.
Hey guys, you ready to go?
Tonight marks the biggest gaming event of the year, and it starts right now.
0 Hour was this in-person fan experience in the desert in California. I was at G4 at the time, and I remember we got wind that they were just gonna throw an epic party for Xbox fans.
This is Xbox 360! I'm hexed!
We had a hangar in the middle of nowhere and decked it out with hundreds of gaming stations.
We are seconds away from this hangar opening and all of these people getting a chance to play the Xbox 360.
And as the doors start to open, like the biggest doors you'd ever seen, you knew that you're about to run in to what would be the future of gaming.
Are you ready?
And we basically said, hey, come here and you're gonna be the first to play games, and we're gonna sell you consoles here as well.
Thousands of gamers came, people that had met on Xbox Live that had never actually seen each other in person before. People were so happy. It was a magical launch event.
0 Hour event was a huge success, a massive celebration. We had so much pride in this product.
Was this a transcendent moment for you?
Oh, yes.
The excitement generated in the desert spilled into the rest of the country as the console became available to the public on November 22nd, 2005.
I waited in line in like freezing rain for like 3 hours outside this Best Buy to try and get a slip so I could get an Xbox 360. I was so stoked when I got it. I took a selfie.
They had a great launch lineup. They had the gamer in mind first.
It had the features that I would want in a
Era
console.
praticamente
It had
20
the
anni fa,
games
ragazzi.
For casual gamers, for hardcore gamers.
The Xbox 360 marketplace was where you could buy digital games. Sure, you had Steam and people could do it on PC, but this was a managed, curated portfolio, much like is an app store today. And we were one of the first ones to have it.
I start downloading games and I download Joust, Robotron, and Defender, and like all of a sudden everybody's having fun because these games are amazing. And I'm like, okay, we were sitting here at Grandma's house and we were bored, And I just got on the internet and downloaded games, and now we're playing video games and having fun. This is the future. This is the greatest thing in history, and this is what this console transition is about.
I can view my profile so I can see, what games I've got, and it's got the whole achievements thing here as well.
It was the first console with achievements. We take that for granted now, but all the little bonus points and your gamer score and your rating.
You achieved something in the game, and that's
Questa è una
something
cosa
is
che anche
whatever
io
the
stesso ci faccio poco
developer
caso. Sono
decided,
stati
hey, did
effettivamente
you
i primi
scale this mountain? Did you
con gli
open this door? Did
achievement,
you find this thing?
perlomeno su
Somebody plays
console.
the game, but if you wanted to really complete it, you had to get every achievement.
Let's get some ass.
I've got 148,000 gamer score. People are like, what is that? Why do you care? Because it's something that reminds me of all the time that I've had, all the games that I've played, all the I feel like I've accomplished something.
They had an incredible console that was built for always online, always ready, with a stunning interface that ran on top of everything, and they came out guns blazing.
We had low price, with high def, with great games, and a product that was great. And so we felt we had a chance that generation.
Yeah, we were riding high, we were celebrating, morale was extremely high.
They had arrived. They had to gain the trust of
Tanti
developers.
Mauri.
They had to make a statement with the gamers.
E ancora oggi qualche partitina sulla 360 la faccio ancora. Sì, ne conosco di persone effettivamente.
Of all the lessons that they had learned with the original Xbox.
I think 360 was finally that moment that Jay and Seamus and everyone, dreamed of.
Gamers were looking to see whether we would get it right this time, and we thought that we did. We needed to be seen as the start of the next generation, and this all needed to come together flawlessly. Unfortunately, that's not quite what happened.
This is called an E74 error. Contact Xbox customer support.
It was in the forums, and I started to notice that something wasn't right. I think there's something going on here.
The criticisms that we're reading about are coming from the games press, who are hearing from gamers who are saying, I'm having a problem with my box.
You can feel the top of the Xbox, it's pretty hot.
We can hear retailers starting to say, there's an issue here.
With the 360, Microsoft had built something amazing and special, but this problem was something that could kill the Xbox and all the work that they had done to get to this point.
Ragazzi, e qui poi si apre. Allora, effettivamente vedete, questa puntata è stata piuttosto celebratoria, questo capitolo 4, ma poi il prossimo, che vi anticipo si chiamerà il cerchio rosso della morte, avrà tutto un altro tono, perché lì Microsoft ha pagato molto caro un problema che poi alla fine si vedrà se sarà di design, di componentistica, cose del genere. Cioè, la schermata blu della morte, che è quello di Windows, no? The Red Ring of Death. Si chiama così il prossimo capitolo. E in realtà i prossimi 2 capitoli mostrano dei grossi errori che fece Microsoft. Quindi questo, se vogliamo, è uno dei pochi capitoli quasi puramente celebrativi. Agakure, grazie mille della sub. Grazie di cuore. Da lì sono passato alla PS3. Esatto. Vedete? Sono effettivamente cose che sono successe. Allora, ragazzi, qui siamo passati dall'effettivo lancio della prima Xbox a quelli che furono i primi giochi di successo, all'Xbox Live, che rivoluzionò veramente il mondo del gioco online e della comunicazione online, fino ad arrivare all'Xbox 360, che fu un evento, se vogliamo, ancora più grande. E guardando questi 2 capitoli uno può pensare che sia andato tutto liscissimo, e invece diciamo che si sono fatti un paio di errori grossi, e questi li vedremo nel prossimo capitolo. Allora, sì, effettivamente il raid questo lo devo fare. Sono avvicinati molto al sole e si sono bruciati le ali. Perché vedremo in realtà degli errori di diverso tipo che sono stati fatti nel periodo immediatamente successivo, perché finora l'errore non è stato di strategia. Se notate, effettivamente invece come strategia hanno azzeccato tantissimo, hanno offerto a delle persone delle cose che volevano giocare e anche dei modi differenti e nuovi che sperimentavano per la prima volta, che hanno incontrato il favore della gente. Gli errori che vedremo nella prossima puntata, la prossima volta, sono delle cose che invece sono uno più tecnico, ma un altro proprio di strategia, in cui avevamo proprio completamente mancato il bersaglio. Red Ring of Death, la mia ancora non l'ha manifestato, toccando non si dice esatto, sì. Beh, non tutte le 360, anche perché le 360 che hanno mandato da un certo punto in avanti, quel difetto ce l'avevano molto meno, perché hanno corretto una cosa. La vedremo nella prossima puntata. D'accordo ragazzi? Bene, alla fine sono fatte le 11, effettivamente, quindi siamo arrivati proprio praticamente precisi. Beh, ragazzi, stiamo continuando questa visita di documentario e per ora abbiamo detto tante cose, ma il fatto è che questo capitolo si blocca proprio in uno dei momenti cardine. E questo sembra un po' più celebrativo, cioè questi due capitoli che abbiamo visto adesso, sì, ovviamente raccontano di momenti difficili, tipo e non si accende alla presentazione alle 3, e quello fu un momento catastrofico, l'abbiamo visto oggi, però per altro quest'ultimo capitolo è stato parecchio celebrativo. Dovete sempre ricordarvi che questo documentario è un prodotto promozionale di Microsoft e mi ha veramente impressionato come abbiano deciso tutto sommato di essere piuttosto sinceri nel raccontare per bene tutte le cose, probabilmente perché hanno valutato che era un buon modo per farsi conoscere, per portare avanti un certo tipo di diffusione di informazioni e anche di pubblicità, ma anche perché tutto sommato se la prendi insieme la storia è notevole, è notevole. Allora, Giambrone, ciao, grazie mille del follow. Ciao Saboid, ben trovati ragazzi. Allora, adesso datemi un secondo che becco qualcuno a cui fare raid. Eccoci qua. Vediamo un po', vediamo chi c'è. Aspetta, vediamo un po'. Va bene, dai, sì. Andiamo di nuovo dal nostro carissimo. Ok. Dai, chi c'è? Nico, Arson, qualcuno? Chi è che mi cala il maglio? Grazie. All'ultimo che sta facendo il campionato mondiale di simpatia. Grazie Nico, vedo che hai capito. Adesso. Facciamo questo. Perfetto. Vabbè, andiamo a trovare il nostro caro Zerg. Va bene ragazzi, allora, noi ci salutiamo qua, grazie mille per essere stati in live, noi ci vediamo molto presto, mi raccomando, seguitemi qui su Twitch se ancora non l'avete fatto, pigiate quel bel cuoricino, abbonatevi con Twitch Prime se ne avete la possibilità, che aiuta davvero tantissimo il canale. Seguitemi anche sui social come Instagram e Telegram, dove si trova la community, e iscrivetevi anche ai miei 2 canali YouTube, tutti i link sono qui sotto o tramite il bot in chat. D'accordo ragazzi? A presto.